Obama-Biden administration was the intersection of the deep church with the deep state. So in 2012, I went to Honduras with Joe Biden. We had a strange series of occurrences. We flew into it. There's it's kind of a secret Air Force base there. And he looked really nervous. And he goes, look, I made a mistake. We can't fly into the capital city. Well, waiting for us there was the vice president of Honduras. So Biden gets off the plane, meets this vice president, and then she jumps in the limo with him and rides 90 minutes into town. And that's a very suspicious timing of a meeting.
To the point you were making a minute ago, it's like the whole system of deep state and deep church collaborating together. So children in particular, not just drugs, but children can come over that border.
And basically they gave that guy who's smuggling cocaine in the United States by the ton, $500 million of our taxpayer money from 2014 to 2016. And McCormick was the go-between with Obama, Biden.
By the way, my name is Joe McClain. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
But the headline says how Obama-Biden deal with Honduras to flood the U.S. with illegal immigrants finance ActBlue. Now, you might remember that there was that flood of undocumented minors, thousands and thousands of which were released into the custody of gang members and the notorious criminals, and now are missing. We don't know where they are. I've interviewed some of the whistleblowers just on those stories alone. Joining us now to talk about this is Mike McCormick, author of An Almost Insurmountable Evil, How Obama's Deep State defiled the church, the Catholic Church, and executed the Wuhan pandemic. He's also the author of The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. He's also a White House stenographer, and he joins us this morning. Good morning to you, Mike. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you again.
Praise be to God. It's good to have you back. So, all right, so you had a front row seat in the Obama administration to some of these events, and your name is mentioned in this article, and I thought, I got to talk to him about this. So what is the story here? Why would Obama and Biden want to work a deal specifically to flood our country with these illegal immigrants?
Well, so I was White House stenographer from 2002 through 2018. So 1 year with Trump, that was a good year. That was, I think that was the catalyst that started the illegal immigration flood that hit our borders in 2021 after Biden got in. But the planning for it began 10 years earlier.
Wow.
So in 2012, I went to Honduras with Joe Biden. Joe Biden took a trip. He went to Mexico and he went to Honduras in March of 2012. This was, at the time, I thought it was, he's just going out there to get support for the 2012 election from the Hispanic community. It really wasn't that at all. In Mexico, he went to Our Lady of Guadalupe. He went to the shrine. He had meetings with the Mexican government, and then he went to Honduras. What came out of Honduras, and I put this in my book, The Case, Impeach, and Imprison Joe Biden, that book, was a operation. It was called Operation Anvil. Basically, there was a corrupt Honduran president. His name was Pepe Sosa Loba. He was smuggling cocaine into the United States by the ton. Wow. The U.S. knew about it. On the trip, we had a strange series of occurrences. We flew into it. It's kind of a secret Air Force base there called Soto Cano, Air Base Soto Cano. And it's outside of the capital city, which I'm not going to try to pronounce. It begins with a T and ends with blah, blah, blah. But we were flying in there from Mexico, and on every plane there's a military aide. A guy came back to us. He was a Navy guy, and he goes, and he looked really nervous, and he goes, look, I made a mistake. We can't fly into the capital city. We're going to fly into this other air base, Soto Cano. It's a 90-minute drive into the main center of the city for meetings with the president. Well, waiting for us there was the vice president of Honduras. So Biden gets off the plane, meets his vice president, and then she jumps in the limo with him and rides 90 minutes into town. That's a very private conversation, and that's a very suspicious timing of a meeting. If this was a last-minute switch, what the guy said happened was it rained, and the runways are wet, and I calculated the landing capability of our aircraft for dry runways, not wet runways. And I was like, that sounds really weird. Well, I don't think that was the truth. And I think what happened was this vice president went out there who was helping the president of Honduras. He was a drug smuggler. In that situation, if she has a package to hand off to the vice president, it happens far from me. There was no media on the plane. It was only me. And the reason they wanted me is because he then did a bunch of, we went to Miami right after that trip to Honduras, and he did a bunch of interviews there. So I was a stenographer for that series of events, but I was just sort of sitting there watching as this happened. She could have handed something off to him. So I think that was something strange to me. I put that in my book. What happens out of this meeting is this Operation Anvil. They're smuggling cocaine in the U.S. The U.S. government is kind of turning a blind eye to the cocaine smuggling, and then they start helping them. The Honduran government builds up a cartel-afflicted, cartel-infiltrated national police force right then and there as part of this Operation Anvil. And they started killing, the cartel used that police force to kill their opponents that were smuggling drugs in. So they basically killed the opponents, took the cocaine, and put it into their warehouses. They had to get rid of this guy. So in 2013, they got a new guy in there. His name is Juan Orlando Hernandez. He was also a Sinaloa cartel guy. He's smuggling drugs into the United States by the ton. He's the guy that's in that picture. He gets put in 2013, and the guy who was in charge of the Defense Department's Southern Command down there was General John F. Kelly, who later becomes Trump's chief of staff in 2018. So that picture is Joe Biden having an intimate moment with Juan Orlando Hernandez, the president of Honduras, in the Roosevelt Room in the White House. That's July 25th, 2014. And sitting right next to them in the picture is Cardinal McCormick. In 2014, in the summer, so Orlando Hernandez has only been in there for a few months, all these unaccompanied minors start showing up at the U.S. border, 60,000 over the course of that summer. And the reason Orlando Hernandez comes into the White House is Joe Biden has to fix it. He's the guy who's got to solve the crisis. Yeah. And so what they came up with is Alliance for Prosperity program. Joe Biden set it up, and basically they gave that guy who's smuggling cocaine in the United States by the ton $500 million of our taxpayer money from 2014 to 2016. And McCormick was the go-between with Obama, Biden. He was doing meetings in the White House. Immediately after they took that picture, like weeks after, he goes into the White House 3 times and meets with the White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough. And they set up this Alliance for Prosperity and put the Catholic NGOs in there. Catholic Relief Services, U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Who was in charge of U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops at the time? Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Where was Bishop McElroy at the time? He was an assistant bishop, an auxiliary bishop in San Francisco. Shortly after that, he gets moved to San Diego, which is a border diocese with the Mexicans. So in 2015, all these kids are coming in the summer of 2015. In March of 2014, in March of 2015, with all this money going to these criminal cartel affiliated presidents, they put McElroy in as the bishop on the San Diego diocese. That became the place what was most heavily trafficked for cartel activity. Drug smuggling, human trafficking during the Biden administration when he comes in.
It's insane. It's just insane to think about. This Gateway Pundit article, which I'm also going to link to, which is the longer form of the complicit clergy article, says under the Obama and Biden administrations, and at the direction of then Department of Homeland Security Director Alejandro Mayorkas, the United States became a white glove delivery service for children to be transferred into the hands of child sex traffickers. Going on to say, cartels came to realize that far more money could be made with children than with drugs. Arizona State Senator Mark Finchman, the executive director of the Election Fairness Institute, explained to the author, the article says. And this is going, sort of the point you were making a minute ago. It's like the whole system of deep state and deep church collaborating together. So children, in particular, not just drugs, but children can come over that border. And then where do those children end up, Mike?
Well, they go into refugee services that are staffed by the Catholic Church that got billions of dollars from the Biden administration's Health and Human Services agency. So, I mean, we basically paid for this process. And the thing is, it started in 2012. It started 10 years earlier. And what happened in 2013? Pope Francis gets installed. And what does Pope Francis want to do? He wants to open up the borders. And what happens in 2016? Donald Trump becomes the most popular candidate in America, way far more popular than Hillary Clinton and anybody else. And what do they have to do? They have to stop him. So Pope Francis goes to Mexico in February of 2016. I have that in that book. There it is. Almost Insurmountable Evil. He goes to Mexico. He does a speech at the border talking about we have to open borders for migrants. This is, we need compassion in our world. And on the flight home to the Vatican, one of the Vatican reporters asked him, so what do you think about this guy, Donald Trump? He's talking about building a wall. Pope Francis says, I don't know this businessman, but if he's talking about building walls, not bridges, he's not a good Christian. That's the Pope saying that about a presidential candidate.
Yeah, I remember.
Trump jumps down his throat. The Vatican backed off, not Pope Francis, the Vatican. And so then they had sort of a taunt. But Trump gets elected. This is what happened. The cartels had this thing set up for years with the Democratic Party, with Obama, with Biden. They wanted to do this in 2016 as the aftermath of this Alliance for Prosperity. And Trump got in front of it. We voted Trump in 2017. He puts up the wall. They start going around him. John F. Kelly was his chief of staff. They started working around him. And so eventually what happened was in 2018, shortly after the midterm election, Trump arrests Juan Orlando Hernandez's brother, Tony Hernandez, for smuggling drugs into America. And during the trial that is in October of 2019, it comes out the Sinaloa cartel was involved with Orlando Hernandez. He's still the president of Honduras. They couldn't arrest him because he was a sitting president. But they have all this information come out and no one reports on it. Why? Because there's impeachment process against Trump.
Who is ActBlue? Where do they get their funding? And why do they have their tentacles in all kinds of nefarious activities?
Well, ActBlue is a Democratic Party funding organization. I personally don't know that much about it. The person who wrote that article is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and he's the one who sort of put together the reporting on the sort of how this ActBlue connects into this Alliance for Prosperity. What I know is that there was a assistant sheriff in Millersville, Tennessee, named Sean Taylor, who arrested somebody after the Alliance for Prosperity sort of was up and running. They arrested a drug smuggler, and they started looking into this. What's going on with these mortgages? There's mortgage fraud going on, and that's what involved ActBlue. And then Mark Fincham, who you quoted, he has the Election Fairness Institute. He has been involved in election fairness and looking at these democratic organizations that fund, like you said, they fund Antifa, they fund the 1,000 Mules, the election fraud of 2020. There's a lot of that involved. So this was all done through, it looked like what happened was these $500 million goes to Honduras. Some of that money comes back and goes to ActBlue. and ActBlue sends it through a bank, through a mortgage system. They had mortgages on a house, on a couple of houses, like $100 million worth of mortgages for small, nondescript five bedroom houses. And what they realized, they were laundering the money. So it was either cartel money they were laundering, or it was Alliance for Prosperity money they were laundering. Comes back to ActBlue, and ActBlue puts it in, and then they get these loans against these mortgages. So $100 million in loans, they take that loan money and disperse it to their networks.
I think Americans typically these days, anyway, they don't trust their government. We don't trust our government all that much. Even if let's say a majority of Americans still like, support, and applaud the performance of Donald Trump right now. Even if that's true, I don't even know where that number is right now, but just for the sake of the conversation, let's say it's true. I think they're all scratching their heads going, well, wasn't Kash Patel supposed to, tell us where all the bones are buried? That hasn't happened. Pam Bondi, what happened there? Like, I just think Americans are feeling like we can't trust anything that comes out of our federal government at all. How do you see it as a former federal employee? Do you think it's possible to clean the swamp? Is that even a thing, or has that ship sailed and it just is what it is?
It's going to take a long time, but what we're seeing right now is Trump has declared war on the cartels. I mean, I think one of the things that I talk about in that book was when Pope Francis came in, there were three focuses that the Catholic Church under him entailed that were directly connected to the Obama-Biden policies. They pushed forward the Iran nuclear deal. That whole thing has gone sideways into a war in the Middle East with Israel and Gaza, and Iran is teetering on the brink of becoming extinct with the mullahs. They pushed the Chinese, betrayed the Chinese Catholic Church, the underground Catholic Church, to the communists.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going sideways. And they align with the cartels through this Alliance for Prosperity, through all this activity. Now Trump has declared war on the cartels. That's what the National Guard is doing here in Washington. He's got a bunch of soldiers walking around on the streets of Washington armed. That's protection for the people who would be working for Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. So if there is a cartel activity, they're going to go against the tip top of our military. You can't declare war on their cartels and invade Mexico. But what you can do is you can bomb their boats as they're driving around in the open ocean. You can roll up their cartel activities here in Chicago and Washington and New York, and shut off their marketplace.
So do you think it's possible then? Is it? I mean, that was my initial question: is it possible to clean up the swamp? Is it? Or, I mean, is it such an infiltration? Is it such a corruption at multiple levels of government that, because when we started the conversation, you pointed out that even though Biden sort of executed the plan when he was president, it all was planned under Obama 10 years before. It sounds to me like it's so complicated, such a complicated knot, that there's really not a lot of expectation for truly cleaning up the deep state in our country.
Well, Archbishop Vigano he's got a really good handle on this. He's long talked about that the Obama-Biden administration was the intersection of the deep church with the deep state. So yes, there is a deep church and there's a deep state. So are we cleaning up the deep state? Yeah. You've got to do it by force. You've got to do it slowly. It's going to take time. They're doing it. There's a lot of, they got rid of the USAID. USAID was a big funder of the Alliance for Prosperity. USAID was a big funder of the Wuhan Institute of Virology that leaked the Wuhan virus in 2020. That's the second part of the book is that, Pope Francis in March of 2020 came out there and shut down the Catholic Church. All worship and all activity in the Catholic Church was locked down for 2 weeks in March. That's one of the most evil things any pope has ever done. And he did that to back up Joe Biden, to help him get elected so they could open up the border in 2021. That's the amount of evil. And that was backed up. That was just part of a process that involved health and, the deep health, the deep state, and the deep church all together to shut our world down, the entire world. And so, it's going to take a long time to undo this. And so they're working on it. And I know Trump is working on it. The more we learn, the better.
How aware do you think Donald Trump is about all these details that we've been discussing? Does he know who the players are and their backgrounds? And does he know who the good guys are and the bad guys aren't?
Yeah. So, for instance, in 2017, he comes in. He didn't know that the guy who was Department of Homeland Security, John F. Kelly, was working with the cartels. He didn't know that his director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, was part of the deep state aligned against him. He didn't know that Mike Pompeo brought Bill Barr in, a Catholic, to be on a commission to advise the CIA, and that's when they had to get rid of McCormick. They got rid of McCormick in June of 2017. They had to get rid of him as a witness. So this stuff all started because of Trump. He's the catalyst, and now he's back, and he's going full throttle.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.